In August 1944, following the Allied breakthrough at Normandy, German defenses across France had been shattered. General George Patton's Third Army was racing eastward at unprecedented speeds, 30, 40, sometimes even 50 miles per day. Yet this rapid advance created a critical, unforeseen problem. The armies were outrunning their supply lines. The logistical demands were staggering. Every Sherman tank burned 5 gallons of fuel per mile, and an infantry division required 650 tons of supplies daily, including ammunition, rations, and medical equipment. The port of Cherbourg was barely functional after German demolitions, and the next major port, Antwerp, wouldn't be operational for months. This meant every essential item had to be trucked 350 miles overland from the Normandy beaches to the front lines, navigating bombed-out roads. At Supreme Headquarters, logistics officers faced numbers that simply didn't add up. Patton's tanks were literally running dry, and forward units were reporting they were down to just 3 days of ammunition. Some tank battalions were completely immobilized, not by the enemy, but by empty fuel tanks. On August 21st, Colonel Frank Ross, the Chief of Transportation, delivered a devastating report to General Eisenhower. 23% of all supplies were being lost before they ever reached the front. These losses were due to truck accidents, German air attacks, and vehicles breaking down mid-convoy. The crisis was profound. If Patton stopped, the Germans would reinforce. If he kept moving without supplies, his army would collapse. With the window to end the war by Christmas rapidly closing, Eisenhower demanded solutions in days, not months, but the meeting adjourned with no answers. 90 miles from headquarters, Technical Sergeant Raymond Ray Kowalski, a long-haul trucker from Pittsburgh before the war, sat in his GMC Jimmy truck. He watched the wreckage of another convoy, 8 trucks overturned, burned out, supplies scattered. After a Luftwaffe strafing run, they had been bunched together, sitting ducks. Kowalski, a man who had driven steel shipments across Pennsylvania for 15 years, felt the official convoy doctrine was fundamentally wrong. The official doctrine for the Red Ball Express, the code name for the emergency supply operation, was to have trucks travel in formations of 20 or more vehicles, 60 yards apart, at a maximum of 25 miles per hour, the principle of safety in numbers. Kowalski had driven 6 such convoys in 2 weeks, and every single one had taken casualties. He realized the problem was not just the German air attacks, but the doctrine itself. 20 trucks bunched together on a narrow road created a target visible from 10 miles away. When the lead truck stopped, the entire formation halted, unable to maneuver, turning the spacing meant for safety into a perfect kill zone. Kowalski observed a different pattern. Independent drivers who left a delayed depot on their own, with no coordination, arrived at the forward dump safely, every single one. He noted that independent trucks traveling alone or in pairs, spread out over hours, were nearly impossible for German aircraft to target effectively. A convoy of 20 trucks was one target. 20 individual trucks spread across 4 hours of travel time were 20 separate hunting missions, a massive expenditure of fuel and limited air resources for the Germans. Kowalski ran the numbers. Conventional convoys averaged 23% losses, but the few independent trucks he tracked had less than 3% losses. On August 25th, he took his notebook to his company commander, Captain Dennis Hayes. "Sir, I think I know how to cut our supply losses by 90%, he proposed. Hayes's curt rejection echoed the attitude of the military bureaucracy. "Kowalski, you're a goddamn truck driver. Leave the tactics to people who went to West Point." The proposal was formally denied, stating it violated established military doctrine and tactical protocol. Other officers, like Lieutenant Colonel Martin Burgess, acknowledged his logic but worried about stranding a single truck in hostile territory. Even the other drivers thought he was crazy, calling his idea a death wish. Finally, on August 29th, Colonel Ross reviewed the proposal and wrote across the top, "Denied. Unauthorized deviation from convoy protocol is prohibited. Any driver operating outside established convoy parameters will face court-martial." Kowalski's ridiculous idea was dead. However, Lieutenant General Walter Bedell Smith, Eisenhower's chief of staff, was reading the reports. The supply crisis was catastrophic, and Patton had been ordered to halt. On August 30th, Smith walked into Ross's office. He bypassed the doctrine arguments, asking, "I read the doctrine. I'm asking why we're losing a quarter of our supplies following it." He dismissed the idea of expected parameters and demanded to see the sergeant immediately. 2 hours later, Kowalski, unshaven and smelling of diesel fuel, stood before 3 full colonels and a lieutenant general. Kowalski explained his simple method. The Germans can't attack what they can't predict. Instead of waiting hours for convoy assembly, trucks should be loaded and sent out immediately at staggered intervals. This meant spreading 20 trucks across 60 miles of road and 3 hours of travel time, making them unpredictable targets. A single broken-down truck wouldn't stop 19 others, and a bypassed German unit might ambush 1 truck, but in a convoy, they'd ambush 20. Smith looked at the data. Conventional convoys, 23% losses. Independent trucks, 3% losses. The general's decision was immediate. Sergeant Kowalski, you'll run a trial operation. 1 week, 20 trucks under your dispatch method. If losses drop below 10%, we implement it system-wide. The trial began on September 1, 1944. Under the traditional method, all 20 trucks would wait 4 to 6 hours to depart together. Kowalski's method was radical. The first truck was loaded at 600 hours, and it was sent out immediately. The others followed as they were loaded, resulting in 5 hours of staggered departures, spreading them across 90 miles of road. He also told his experienced drivers to run what's safe. If you can do 40, do 40. The results were remarkable. The trucks arrived at the forward supply dumps faster than any convoy had managed. The first vehicle arrived 90 minutes faster than the convoy average. All 20 trucks delivered their cargo with 0 losses and 0 attacks. The Luftwaffe did spot 3 trucks, but attacking a single vehicle was not worth the fuel and ammunition. By day 5, the statistics were undeniable. Kowalski's method cut supply losses from 23% to less than 3%, a 90% reduction. On September 7th, General Smith issued the order. All Red Ball Express operations would immediately adopt staggered individual dispatch protocols. The entire Red Ball Express, nearly 6,000 trucks, abandoned traditional convoys almost overnight. In the final 8 weeks of operations, supply losses dropped to 2.7% and delivery speed increased by 32%. The amount of supplies reaching Patton's Third Army and other frontline units more than doubled. German after-action reports captured their frustration. One squadron commander wrote that Allied supply trucks now operated with no predictable pattern, making individual vehicle interdiction an ineffective use of limited air resources. They had made truck hunting economically impossible for the overstretched Luftwaffe. Kowalski's method was soon adopted across all Allied theaters. The Red Ball Express, utilizing his new protocols, delivered over 412,000 tons of supplies, providing the fuel and equipment necessary to keep 6 Allied armies advancing across France and into Germany. On November 18, 1944, Raymond Kowalski received the Bronze Star Medal for his innovative tactical logistics methods. The impact of his idea did not end with the war. The U.S. Army Transportation Corps formally adopted staggered dispatch protocols as official doctrine in 1947. It is taught to every logistics officer today. Modern military supply convoys use dispersed timing and unpredictable patterns. The core concept remains: make the enemy's interdiction efforts economically inefficient by dispersing your logistics footprint. Civilian trucking adopted the principle too. Modern logistics systems like just-in-time delivery and staggered scheduling trace their intellectual lineage to Kowalski's insight. Bunching creates vulnerability. Spacing creates resilience. Raymond Kowalski died in 1983. He was just a retired truck driver with a Bronze Star in a drawer. But in every military logistics course, in every analysis of the Allied advance across Europe, there is a footnote about the sergeant who proved that sometimes the best innovations come not from commanders or theorists, but from the person actually doing the job. His method didn't just cut supply losses by 90%, it changed how the modern world moves everything. Would you like me to focus on a different aspect of this story, like the initial skepticism Kowalski faced, or how his method impacted modern civilian logistics?